It was the summer of 2005, a rare time when our small North Carolina town didn't feel suffocating. We were 18, fresh out of high school and ready for one last adventure before life split us apart. Lucas, Cody, and Michelle, a trio bonded by years of friendship and a love for ghost stories, set out into the mountains. The plan was simple: one final hurrah before college. Lucas was the quiet observer, the one who chronicled every moment in a notebook tucked in his pack. Cody was the wild one, all messy curls and boundless energy. Michelle, ever practical and sharp, carried a knife in her boot and an edge to match. Together, they made an odd but unshakable trio, eager to chase the thrill of the unknown in the forests they knew so well. The first night was perfect. The stars were so bright it felt like you could reach up and touch them. The campfire crackled, casting flickering shadows as Cody passed around a stolen bottle of whiskey. Michelle leaned in, her voice low and theatrical, as she shared an old legend a Wendigo said to haunt these very woods. Cody laughed it off, but Lucas felt a chill run through him, as if the woods were listening. The next morning, something was off. The sky was grey, heavy with clouds, and the air carried an unbearable smell, metallic, rotten, and suffocating. Cody joked it was his socks, but Michelle's sharp gaze cut through his humor. The scent clung to them, following wherever they went. As the hours passed, the forest seemed to grow darker, quieter, and heavier, as if it were watching. By late afternoon, they found it the cabin Cody had mentioned. It stood crooked and crumbling, like a ghost of its former self, hidden deep in the woods. Inside, the air was stale, heavy with the scent of decay. Bones and broken glass littered the floor, but it was the symbol carved into the wall that stole their breath. A jagged sun-like shape etched with precision. Michelle's voice was tight as she muttered, "Let's go." But Cody, ever curious, stayed to explore. That's when they heard it, a low, guttural growl that seemed to rumble from the earth itself. It was unlike anything they'd heard before, a sound that made their skin crawl and their instincts scream to run. Cody tried to laugh it off, but even he couldn't mask his unease. Michelle's hand instinctively reached for the knife in her boot. The forest had come alive, and they weren't welcome anymore. They didn't see it at first. They felt it. The air grew colder, heavier, as if something immense had entered their world. Then it stepped into view, tall, impossibly tall. Its skeletal frame stretched beyond reason. Its hollow, deer-like face glowed faintly in the dark, its eyes locking onto them with predatory intent. It tilted its head, neck cracking like brittle wood, and spoke in a voice like scraping leaves. "You should not have come." The weight of its words pressed down on them, suffocating and final. When it screamed, the sound tore through the air like a storm. Instinct took over. They ran, crashing through the underbrush as the forest seemed to twist around them. The thing was behind them, its glowing eyes a constant reminder of its pursuit. Branches clawed at their skin, and their lungs burned as they sprinted through the suffocating darkness. But the forest had changed its paths, now unfamiliar, leading them deeper into its grasp. Lucas burst into a clearing, gasping for air. He spun around, realizing he was alone. The silence was deafening, broken only by the pounding of his heart. Then, at the edge of the trees, he saw it. The glowing eyes stared at him, unblinking, unmoving. It didn't chase him. It didn't need to. It just stood there, watching, as if mocking his survival. Lucas was found wandering along the highway, pale and trembling. The police searched for days but found nothing, no trace of Cody or Michelle. They called it an accident, a tragic case of teens lost in the wilderness. But Lucas knew better. He had seen what waited in those woods, and he knew he had only escaped because it had allowed him to. The forest had taken what it wanted. Lucas never returned to Red Hollow. Even years later, the memories haunted him. Every shadow seemed to long, every whisper to close. He would always wonder what had really happened that night, what the forest had claimed and why. But one thing was certain: he would never, ever go back.